Hey friends, Jeff here with a new episode of Conversations Life Science Leaders Aren't Having. I'm excited to welcome today Dr. David Young. David is the CEO of Processa Pharmaceuticals, where they are developing products that improve survival and quality of life for patients with unmet medical needs. And David has a really unique approach to how he leads and how he has led every organization that he's been a part of over the last 30 years. And that really speaks to who David is to me. David is heart, and he brings heart to everything he does, to his home life family, to his work life family, as he calls them, and to everyone that he interacts with. He's all heart, and he wears it on his sleeve, and he does so throughout our conversation. Pull up a chair and enjoy this conversation with Dr. David Young. Dr. David Young, it is so exciting to have you here on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to our conversation. And so first, a real hearty welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate the invitation. Looking forward to talking to you.
Yeah. So you heard me just give a really brief introduction of you and who you are to me. Would love for you to start off and letting us know what you're up to in the world.
Well, like any CEO in the biotech world, things are up and down this last few months. So dealing with those type of things. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with us. It's just the macro environment that's going on, as everybody knows. So dealing with that. The other thing is, this is summertime, so able to spend time with the grandkids, go on vacations with the grandkids, and that's been a lot of fun and relaxing. Though hectic. A lot of grandkids, but fun. It's been really fun. I've been able to relax some, been able to, be able to sit back, enjoy them, laugh with them, play with them, be able to spend time with the family, but then also been able to concentrate on things we have to get done with Processa moving forward and making sure that we're taking care of everybody, not only my biological family, but all my family, which includes Processa and even the investors.
Yeah, it strikes me, and I'm going to get a little bit more personal here in a second with our 3 H's, but it just strikes me that you whether it's the ability or by the force of nature, however you want to describe it, but there's margin in your life that you've created. You have time for you have time for work, which clearly is still very important to you, but that you've created a life with some margin. Was that an intentional choice that you've made?
I don't know if it was thought about, saying I'm going to cut out this amount of time for this. It's not that way. I think it's because, I warned you, I'm a crybaby. So, I think it's because, when I was growing up, my mother and father were so busy doing work. And whenever they could, my mother would cut out of doing things for the business and spend time with us. And it was super valuable. It was super valuable. And I don't think it was pre-planned or saying, I got 10 minutes here, 20 minutes, nothing like that. The other thing too is my wife is wonderful. And she helps him do everything. And so I'm real lucky that she understands. She's a former professor at the university. She used to be in the medical field before she retired. So she understands what we're trying to do. She understands how I approach things, and that's a benefit. Somebody who is my best friend and like mind.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that. And I'd like to go to our 3 H's because I think it does still give an even more rich picture of you. And our 3 H's are a hero, a highlight, and a hardship. What are your 3 H's?
Oh, sheesh. Jeff, what are you doing to me? Okay. I don't have any one hero. I have a family, and that was my parents, my wife, my kids, and my grandkids. They're my heroes.
Mm.
You know, they're the ones who have to deal with so many things, and we all work together to try to get through life and make things better.
Yeah, I love that. And you can pick whichever H you want to go next, highlight or hardship.
In terms of the highlight, I think the highlight, let me talk about professional highlight. The professional highlight has been able to take what I've learned over the years and put it together for something for good. So a lot of people do things that is for good for themselves. But I think myself and my work team and my work family over the last 30 years have been able to work together so that we can help patients, we can help our work family, we can help investors, and it's been a joy to work with them. It's just it's just fabulous to work with them, to see how they grow, to see us able to solve problems together, and work as a real team. That's been a real highlight for me.
I love it. So many questions, but I'm gonna hold off.
Okay.
What's that last stage? Hardship.
So the hardship is, and this is a little bit out of the selfish side of me, is dealing with people who are selfish. That's been real hard for me. People who, I've dealt with people who specifically say things that aren't true publicly in order to gain financial benefit for themselves. And I just don't understand it. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. I understand there are people like that, but that is really hard for me to deal with. I don't deal with people very well in that way. Really.
And you've mentioned throughout, from the very beginning, you started off by talking about the summer with your family. You've mentioned several times referring to Processa, your team there, as your work family. This idea of family, and even you mentioned your heroes are your closest family. This idea of family clearly is a core value, if we want to call it that, of yours.
Correct.
Was there something? Your home family is clearly one thing. What was it, or was there one moment or a series of moments that put you in that mindset to say, these folks at work, these are my family too?
No, there wasn't any one moment. I don't know why I was raised that way. I just was. And that, if you're a team working together, the team together is a family. That you are sharing goals, you're sharing life, and you're sharing troubles and sadness and tribulations and bumps in the road. And you do the same thing with your biological family. And so to me, it's the same. It's no different. Now, I think the key is that some people aren't used to that. Some people don't like to be in that family type of environment at work. But if you think about it, a football team is a family. A baseball team is a family. A basketball team is a family. They work together for a common goal. And I think our biological families, we work together for a common goal, to be closer, to enjoy life, to prosper, to be happy, and to deal with issues that come towards us together so we get through it easier. Well, that's the same thing we do at work. That's the same thing a football family does. That's the same thing any team that works together does that. I guess that's where most of this has come from. I played high school sports, and it really became an issue of together. These people were family doing things to try to reach a common goal. And so that's kind of how I look at the work, and that's kind of how I look at family. Logical.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a quote by Vince Lombardi, and he said, "I don't have to like my players or my associates, but I must love them." And then he
That's right.
mentions love is respect, love is dignity of the individual, love is teamwork, and that is the strength of the team.
Yes.
And and I can imagine that you don't always like each other. You're not always each other's best friends, but
Right.
because of this value or this lens of family, that you love one another.
Yes. Yes. And you really respect what they bring to the table.
Hmm.
You have to. I have somebody who's head of our development team, John Bagora. She's been with me, involved in everything I've been doing work-wise for the last 30 years, since 1991. Everything I've done, she's done with me. I mean, and I have another person who's been with me for over 20 years. So this is because we work well together. We work as a family. We respect each other, and we know that together we can make. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 10. So we know we can do so much more together as a group, as a team, rather than individuals. And we desire to do that. That's what a biological family is. Together we're better, and that's what a work family is.
As a leader, as the CEO, how do you cultivate that? Because it is a very unique perspective and a unique word to use. Not all leaders will refer to their work environment, their colleagues there as family. How have you learned to cultivate the spirit of family in the organizations that you've led?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know how it's cultivated. I think it's probably because I selected people to join the family, to join the company, who have similar feelings. Who believe in the team, who believe that everybody contributes and everybody has importance. And it's not like one person's more important than the other. That's not the way it is for us. And I don't know why. I just can say it happens, and it's evolved that way. But it's probably because, again, these people have worked with me before. Almost everybody presently in Processa has worked with me at another company, and then wants to join and joins me at the Processa. So they've gone from company to company, and we've kind of grown the group. So maybe it's, inviting people to go into the next venture who I feel have the same feelings that I do. Maybe that's how it is. But I don't know, why it's occurred or how it's occurred. It's evolved. I don't know.
Yeah. Is the word family, is that named? Is that a named quality as you're hiring somebody that doesn't know you? Is that a named quality of the culture? How do people know, as if they don't have experience with you or one of these key people that you've mentioned, how do folks know this is what's expected and that family is part of that expectation?
Yeah, and when we're talking to somebody new, we don't talk about family. We talk about team. And so, again, football team, basketball team, baseball team, whatever. We talk about team, how the team is the most important. And so when we're doing things, it's the team that does it together. And you are a certain position on the team, and you have to hold your weight. And if you can't, we'll do whatever we can to help you to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do and getting to where you need to go. So our discussion is really based on team when we're initially talking about it. I emotionally think of it as family, but we use the word team when we're talking about it, and we use the word team in the company. People who have been with me for so long know that it's like family, but but that maybe the family is more of an emotional rather than a verbal.
Mm, mm, mm. Have you had the situation where someone comes to you after a certain period of time and said, either they've said, this isn't for me, the nature of this environment isn't for me, or maybe you've had to say, or one of your team members have had to say, this really isn't the place for you because of who we are striving to be and how we strive to conduct ourselves. And not that they've necessarily done something egregious or criminal, but have you had those moments where you've said, or they've said, this isn't the right fit?
Yes, we definitely have. The culture of the team is not for them, and that's the same. You have that in sports. You have, I don't want to say tennis players are like that, but you have somebody who plays a solo sport versus somebody who plays a team sport. And the team sport, you have to have a different philosophy and approach to things than a solo sport. And so we definitely have had people come across, and we've brought in. And after a while, we said, this isn't a match. It's not a match. You are more of a solo sport player than a team player. And we really need team players. That's how we approach everything. That's how everybody in the company expects everybody else to act like a team player, like part of the team. Everybody has their position. Everybody plays their position to the highest level and interacts and helps everybody else. But they have to understand it's a team. So that's the approach. Again, using the term team instead of family.
And I think you used the phrase before to think about what's best for each of these teammates, for each of these players. And you referred to even investors. So partners, investors, colleagues within the environment. How do you balance all of that? How do you balance this thought process of thinking about what's best for each of these parties? Because each of those parties have particular needs, have particular viewpoints. How do you, as the CEO and thereby your leadership team, how do you integrate all of those different perspectives on what might be best for them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't think it's an issue of purposely balancing anything. I think what happens is that the first thing I think is important, you lead by example. So, for example, when we started Processa, we raised money, and the team said this money needs to go to development. Because if we develop the drugs and move them forward, then in fact what happens is the value of the company increases, which benefits the individuals, that benefits me, benefits the individual staff, but also benefits investors. So it benefits all parties. Right? And so I, as the example, said, well, in order to benefit everybody, I won't take a salary the first few years. Right? And I use that as the example, say, if I'm not taking a salary for the first few years, it's not that I expect you, Jeff, to not take a salary, but coming into the team, there's going to be a few sacrifices. You knew that before you got here, right? And your sacrifices, instead of earning $250,000 that you normally would in another company, you're going to earn $150,000 for a shorter period of time. And you knew that coming in because that's the approach that the team works. Because I, as the example, did the exact same thing. I got zero salary, even though typically I would be getting, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 salary. I got zero. So they understand that part of what we do is, as a team, we help each other, including the investors, and then investors helped us by putting money in, the actual cash, as well as the team also put in money. I actually put in money. Other people on the team actually put in cash to help everything along. So when they came in, they knew about this kind of approach in the beginning, and that there would be some sacrifices, but the benefit that we would receive in the future would outweigh any sacrifice we're making now or made then. So, and that's what's happened. So we have made a decision that, in fact, we would we would sacrifice now a little bit in the past. Now we're sacrificing a little less. And so we're building up to where we believe we need to go so that everybody is back to normal and even higher level. That's an example of actually deciding where we're going to help and benefit everybody, even the investor, right? All the way down. We do that with everything that we do. It's always like that. And that's the great thing about the Processa team. I mean, they believe in Processa. This is not, I'm going for a 9-to-5 job, or I'm even going to a typical industry job where you're spending all your hours just whatever. But they believe in what we're doing. These are not inexperienced people. These are experienced people who've been in the industry and say, I really believe what you guys are doing. And so I want to be there, help you. I know I may have to sacrifice and I may have to give to other team members in order to help them because they have needs. But I'm willing to do that because it's going to be great in the end. I don't know if I answered your question 100%.
You did. And it feels like it feels situational. So that every situation, the order of impact might be different. So yes. in one situation or context or a particular quarter or year, that the focus is on the patient, and maybe at another season of time, the highest order of impact is on the employees. But it feels like you are feeling the pulse of the moment. You and your team, you're feeling the pulse of the moment and what's required in terms of where you put the most focus.
Correct.
No one has ever, I'm guessing, no one's ever left out, but there is moments in time, given the situation, where that order of impact might be different than it was in a previous decision. Is that right?
Yeah, that's 100%. I've never thought of it that way, but that's exactly what goes on. It's exactly what goes on. I mean, when we look at in terms of, we call audibles all the time. So in drug development, we're calling audibles, and I think I've talked to you about this before. We call an audible. We see the data. We then decide which way we're going. In a sense, corporately, we're doing the exact same thing. Where are we focusing our attention? Corporately, where we want to deal with certain issues corporately, we have to determine which focus is going to occur. So what you're describing is 100% right. I've never heard it described that way, but it's perfectly described. Correct. You are 100% correct.
Yeah, and that requires a unique group of people. I mean, you've already been speaking about this group of people, some of which have been with you for a long time and know the game plan, know the approach. But it requires that situational approach and that the calling of audibles. That requires a very unique mindset.
Yes.
If you were to
a team mindset. That's the key.
Okay. What else is part of that mindset? So family/team. What else is part of that mindset that you have found is critical to someone being able to shift, to change, to reconsider? What are those other qualities that you've seen are essential for that approach?
I mean, I think most of them are under the team or family terms, but one of the things that I think I've seen is being self-absorbed or self-important is something that doesn't work in that environment. So people who think they're always right, or people who think don't listen to other people, that doesn't work in this kind of environment. There is no leader. Everybody leads. Everybody shares their thoughts. Yes, I'm the CEO, but and corporately I have the final say. But I know that a lot of times I say the wrong thing, and somebody will come up to me and say, "No, David, I think we need to do it this way. You need to look at it this way." Yeah, of course. Of course. What dummy, David? So you can't be so self-absorbed with how you think and how you approach things, which means that your past learnings and past experiences may not apply, right? Because in your past experiences, it may have been very, very structured. You do A, you do B, you get an okay, then you can do C and you get an okay, then you do D, something like that. That's not how things are done with us. It really is a group discussion. Then somebody makes a decision which way we're going. And it's not always me that's making that decision. All right. I have input like everybody else. But everybody is able to articulate their rationale. That's the other thing. So the self-absorbed issue is a problem, but being able to articulate your thoughts and why you're thinking it this way, or why you think it should be this way or that way, that's really key to this kind of environment. If it's, well, I think it should be that way, and that's all you say, then how are we supposed to understand where you're coming from? How are we supposed to understand your thought process? So being able to articulate your thought process becomes very, very important in order to determine which way to go, what to emphasize now, what to emphasize tomorrow, what to emphasize the next day. That's key to everything going on. And if you can't articulate it, one thing that's really good about our team is that we understand some people articulate things better than others, and I'm not the greatest at it. But but I know what I feel, I know what I'm thinking, and I can actually share that to some level. Maybe not as good of English as everybody else, but to some level. So that's all we ask. Share what your thoughts, share what you feel, share where you're going, because that helps all of us become better at what we're doing and better people.
Yeah, a world that I spend most of my time in is servant leadership, and it really feels, whether you've identified that approach as the name or not, but within servant leadership, there's a concept of first among equals, that there always has to be a first among equals, and you being the CEO, you take that spot, you wear that hat, but the dynamic feels like you are one who happens to be the first, but among a group of equals. And does that extend beyond your team? Does that extend to wherever they sit, whatever seat they sit in the organization? Would you say that's true?
I would say that's true. Yes.
And yes. I could imagine for the one who may sit in the lowest seat in the organization, a junior level or an entry level scientist or quality control person, that might be a little daunting for them. Maybe they're 20 something years old and it's their first job.
Yeah.
And now they're in this environment. They signed up for the environment as you described it. How do you help, or how do within the organization, how do you help that person along to feel that it is safe to disagree, it is safe to challenge, it is safe to state a perspective or an opinion? How have you found to create that feeling of safety?
I think the reason people feel like that in the company is because people who have been here for a while at maybe a little higher level than they are able to disagree with me personally. So at a meeting, we could be at a meeting and they say, David, I don't think that's right. I think you're wrong. And the fact that the younger staff or the newer staff see that people can disagree with me and I don't get upset and I'm fine with it, I think helps them to feel they can then do that to their colleagues. And as they grow and do that to their colleagues and have this dynamic discussion going on, they sooner or later will learn they can do it with me because they see other people doing it with me. And they see other people. It's not just saying, it's not just an issue of saying, okay, Jeff, you're the CEO. I'm going to discuss this with you, but I know you're going to do whatever you want. That's not the way it is. It's a situation where we're discussing it and you as CEO say, gosh, David, you're right. We got to do it your way. That's the being able to see that occur in an environment helps me as a young person say, oh, now I can discuss with this person, and they will then, if they see my way, and because I think I'm right, either explain why I'm wrong or accept that I'm right, and then go that way. So
Mm,
I think, and we do that with everybody. Everybody interacts like that way. So even our head of development, they'll do the same with our head of development, who again has 30 years experience in development, but they'll still do it with her, and she'll say, you're right, we need to change it.
mm, mm,
So being able to see that dynamics actively helps the younger staff or new staff know they can do the same thing.
mm. And how has the last 2.5 years been and I'm sure some of your folks have
Yeah.
had, because they're at the bench and they have to be in a physical location, but I would imagine there's a certain percentage of people who have been moved to a remote situation. How have you found cultivating what you're just describing, this family environment? How have you found that in this new remote work or work from home world?
So we don't have labs. Everything is offices. We outsource everything in terms of lab work or analytical work or anything with the lab type of thing.
Okay.
And anything clinical, actual clinical studies, we of course outsource. So even prior to COVID, we were virtual. And we've been virtual for a long time, even from inception.
Okay.
And so we've had people in California, we've had people in North Carolina, we've had people in Pennsylvania, even though we're headquarters in Maryland.
Mhm.
And so, before it was, when Zoom wasn't around, you talked on the telephone and you did the teleconference. And that's how everything was done. We would want people to come in once or twice a year into Maryland to actually have face-to-faces. But it was all virtual before. So the environment that we've built and the culture that we've built was built on a virtual environment already before, with sporadic visits to keep the face-to-face going on.
Yeah. So this is not your first rodeo in terms of remote work.
No.
So the question persists in my mind still, because there are those who are having a really hard time. I talk with
Yes.
CEOs all the time, and they ask me and they say, Jeff, who can I talk to? How do they do it? How do they cultivate the type of teamwork that we see is required in this virtual remote world, where you're not at the coffee station, you're not having lunch with people, that personal touch that comes naturally through physical proximity doesn't exist. So how have you and your team cultivated that family, very team-centric approach in the remote world?
Yeah, I think the reason we've been able to do this is because in our minds we're thinking more of family than of work.
Mm.
And so when your brother or sister or your mother or father live across the country, you never lose that bond. You still have the bond. Yes,
Yeah.
you don't get to see them at all, but you call them on the phone and you talk, and oh yes, and you have that emotional feeling still that exists.
Yeah.
And so that's why, for example, we would have get-togethers, and the get-togethers wouldn't always be work. It would just be bringing everybody together to have a get-together, and that would help the emotional bonds that exist there. So if you have that emotional bonds there, it's a little easier to get through, work, and you're not seeing them, but that's okay. I text them funny jokes, or I text them different things, So there's, I don't want to say we're all friends, because we're not all friends outside, but the emotion of being a colleague, a team member is there. It's not just you're Joe, you're Jeff, I'm David. Hi, Jeff. Hi, David. That's it. It's actually, there is some kind of bonding that goes on. And we try to push that.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's really intentional.
Yes.
That is an intentional act that you and your team take very seriously, because you know that that's what's going to underpin your ability to function as a cohesive family/team.
Yes. Now, of course, when COVID was around for the 2020 and 21, you couldn't even get together at all. I mean, you could travel. And so it was a little harder. 100% it was a little harder. I'm not going to deny that. But as we've been moving away and becoming more having greater ability to actually visit and travel and things like that, we foresee getting back to the mode of getting together. But we started that in the beginning. We've always done that at all the different companies I've been involved with, and so we've been just continuing that on.
So this really fits the name of the podcast is Conversations That Leaders Aren't Having. And while I would say most people are talking about teamwork, the conversation that you're having at Processa is a unique one that most aren't having about teams. And so I'm wondering, what's another topic that, in your observation of the industry, that leaders aren't having that maybe they should be having more of?
Never really thought about that, to be honest with you. I think that's a tough one.
Well, let me ask it a little different way. If you could seed a conversation in the minds of your CEO peers across the globe, what's one conversation? It doesn't have to be the penultimate conversation, but if you were to seed one conversation that you wish every CEO would have with their teams in the coming week, what would that be?
It would be growth. All right. CEOs think of growth of the company. I think about the growth of the company. But a lot of CEOs don't think of the growth of the individual. And they think if the company grows, the individual grows. I'm not a believer of that. I believe there has to be growth of the company and growth of the individual. And so, if you take an example, you take a clinical research associate, you have to provide a path where they can grow to be a clinical project manager. Professionally, there has to be growth professionally for them. There has to be growth financially for them. There has to be growth as a person. All how they interact with people. All this growth of the individual has to occur more. And I think we're not seeing as much as we should have. And within the companies that I've been involved with, especially led, that is a key part of everything that goes on. Growth. I want everybody who interacts and the whole team to grow, to be better, or grow to the next level. Instead of being the second string, they become the first string. I want them to grow. And I think there's a lot of people saying it, but are they really doing something for them to grow? I think that's the issue. That's the biggest thing I see.
That is certainly, I'd be a conversation that I would love to join you and sprinkle in the minds of CEOs all in life sciences all over the globe. I love that one. David, you've used sports metaphors throughout our conversation, so I'm going to use one. I'm going to use another one. I'll stay with football. What's your Super Bowl right now? So your team's on the field. You're in the midst of your quote unquote your season. What's the Super Bowl right now for Processa, or for you personally?
Well, I've already won the Super Bowl personally, so that's not an issue.
Okay.
In terms of the Super Bowl for Processa, I think it's success for everybody involved. All right, and so that's a Super Bowl win. That means every employee, everybody involved with Processa, they have success. That means personal growth. That means financial success. That means, whatever they need, happiness in their family, whatever they need to get to that next level of better life. But that also means for the investors, their success, right? They get one step up. They improve things. They're happy with it. And it also means third, the patient. that the patient has a better life. The quality of life is better. They survive longer because some of these patients don't survive very long. So everything is success. One step better, one step happier, one step more fulfilled. Right. One of the things I tell my staff is my goal in Processa is that everybody from the admin up will have stock worth $1 million. Right. So I want that because I was fortunate to have that. Other staff that were fortunate enough to have that in companies that I've been involved with. And so I want all the staff to have it. I was very upset at one of the companies I was at where, yes, I made out very well, but the admin didn't make out very well. That I didn't like that, but that was the design of the company. All right. And so, I want our admin who has the lowest salary to have enough stock that it's worth $1 million. Right. If she has that, then just imagine what everybody would have.
Yeah.
All the staff. Just imagine what an investor would have if she has that. Right. That's growth. Yeah. Now that's financial growth, but that's just an example of growth that there's also personal growth, knowledge growth, all this stuff. I want everybody to kind of ramp up.
Yeah.
And that's just an example of the financial ramp up.
Yeah. That's quite a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's quite a Super Bowl. Unfortunately, the NFL doesn't work that way. There's one winner and there's a loser. But I absolutely love how you described your Super Bowl. One last question as we get to the end of our conversation is, if you could go back 30 years and give yourself some advice, so you could pull your 30-year younger self aside and have a conversation with him, what's that bit of advice or direction you would give that 30-year younger person?
So I've actually thought about this. There's some things over the last 30 years that I've been heavily involved with. There's some things I'm kind of peripherally involved with in terms of companies, in terms of things going on, investments, things like that. And I've learned that when I'm involved, I'm not saying I'm great or anything like that, but when I'm involved, there seems to be a little bit more success, a higher level of success, greater probability of success than when I'm just kind of stepping back and just watch. So one of the things that I would tell my younger self would be, get involved in things that you really believe in, that you really want to move forward, that you really want to do, okay? Those things that you really don't want to do and you just want to, sit back and watch, fine. But do you really want to spend your time doing that versus getting involved in the one where you really can help the big push, help it really get big? So over the years, like everybody, I've spent time in things that haven't been real successful, a little bit of time, but because I was doing peripheral stuff when I should have just jumped in. If I jump in, that's good. If I'm doing peripheral things, it may not work as well. So just pick and choose what you really want to get involved with and forget some of those peripheral things. Don't worry about them.
That's great advice. I think that's great advice for all of us, no matter where we are in our station in our life or career. David, this has been a real joy. I just love your heart.
You.
And yeah, I love your heart, and your team is really fortunate to have you as their first among equals. If folks are interested to learn more about you and more about Processa, where can they find you?
We have a website, Processa Pharmaceuticals, www.processapharmaceuticals.com or processapharma.com. I think it's either. And on that website, feel free to contact me. I don't have any problems talking to people, giving them my thoughts. Again, I'm not always right. In fact, some of my people would say I'm never right, which is probably, but I'm willing to listen and help whatever I can.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we'll put all that information in the show notes. David, again, thank you. Thank you for your heart and for your time today.
Jeff, thank you for the invitation. I really enjoyed it. Great questions, great insight about the focus. I really like that.
Oh, you're welcome.